Hey everybody, it's Matt Warrior here from the band Pathless Land. We're going to be doing another Stories Behind the Songs segment. And this time, it's not going to be on the album, because this is a YouTube-only release of Pathless Land's cover of Whitesnake's Crying in the Rain. So why did I do this cover? Well, I've been planning this for a long time, for at least 6 years, if not a little bit more. I got into Whitesnake in early 2011. It was one of those forbidden bands I shouldn't get into because, as I'll go into in this video, there was a lot of stigma attached to a lot of those 80s bands, even by 2011. So I got into it, and it surprised me, the 1987 album by Whitesnake, and subsequently I really got into John Sykes as a guitarist, and I was already into David Coverdale because I really dug his albums with Deep Purple, including Stormbringer and Burn. So, I mean, I was really already kind of primed to like Whitesnake, but it just took listening to the whole album, their hair metal album, so to speak, or their first hair metal album, because the earlier stuff that they did was kind of blues rock or hard rock, and I was especially a fan of Crying in the Rain because Crying in the Rain is encapsulates like John Sykes' guitar playing at that time. He didn't write the song, but he's kind of known for it because it was on an earlier album of Whitesnake's before John Sykes joined, which is called Saints and Sinners, but they really made it come alive with that lineup and his solos and stuff. He even did like a solo spot live with the song when they were touring for the Slide It In album in '84. So it really is a David Coverdale composition, but kind of John Sykes filter that made it what it is today. And Neil Murray actually has some credit too, but he doesn't have credit in the songwriting credits, but he kind of wrote a lot of the middle section and stuff, as far as I've heard. So do I like hair metal? Well, that's a tricky question. So going back years and years, if you were into hair metal or any kind of thing associated with hair metal, you were a poser, or even some of the more homophobic tirades against it, you're a faggot. So the irony about using that term for a hair metal fan or band is that the hair metal band's members probably had more female fans and female sexual encounters than all the thrash, death, black, whatever fucking bands put all together, times 10. I mean, you read, Motley Crue's The Dirt, or, some of the Guns N' Roses stories, or, I don't know if you would count Guns N' Roses as hair metal, but they definitely were in that Sunset Strip scene. And, it's just unprecedented amounts of sex was going on between the male band members and the female groupies. So, to say they were gay is... And there's nothing wrong with that, so it looks even dumber today with those types of slurs against people that like hair metal or were into hair metal. But hair metal is kind of a nebulous term. When Whitesnake did their 1987 album, they were not a hair metal band. Even the album itself is marginally hair metal. I would say it's hard rock, it's metal, it's kind of has some tangents of AOR and hair metal, but it's not pure in its purest form. That's probably why I got into it, because it has a little bit of these little mixes of different types of subgenres within it. Now, the tour for that album, after David Coverdale had fired the entire band, or whatever you want to whoever story you want to believe, that is when they adapted the fashion of hair metal, and even look at the pictures during their 1984 tour with the first one with John Sykes. They don't look hair metal at all. They just look like some band, So There's no, I don't even think there's any eyeliner in any of those pictures or anything. So I wouldn't consider Whitesnake hair metal. They're a blues rock, classic rock / later metal band, hard, sort of metalish hard rock band. And that's setting the record straight. Now, as far as am I a fucking poser, whatever, because I like some hair metal? Well, I'll tell you what. So this is the story of that. And this is a little bit of a rant, a little bit of a tangent that I'll go on. So, growing up, I was told by certain people around me, family members or friends or whatever, oh, this band is, if you're into this, you're not a true metal fan or whatever, or, you're into hair metal or whatever. It's like, I followed it. I believed in it. I really truly believed in it. I thought, fuck that shit, man. Yeah. So, up until about 7 years ago, or 7 or 8 years ago, is when things really started picking up with that. But I would say more like, years before that, like early 2000s, when I got into like Dokken and Scorpions and stuff. And even Rad a little bit. Not as much, because I just thought that their albums were lacking as far as consistency compared to Dokken, but whatever. Anyways, I started to like these guitarists because when I had some of my bands, these shredders were like, hey man, you hear of Warren D. Martini or, whoever. So, and even a little bit before that is when I got into Scorpions, because I got into like Yngwie Malmsteen and even like a little bit of Symphony X, not as much, as other people did. And I like them a lot more today, but I got into them too, and I did get into quite a bit of like neoclassical kind of stuff. I was like, where does that come from? So I got into Uli John Roth, who was in the Scorpions in the 70s, and then started listening to their 70s stuff, and then I was like, I'll give their 80s stuff a chance, and then I was like, lo and behold, I fucking liked it, and I make no apologies for that. I think up until a certain point, they were awesome. And then I softened me to Whitesnake, or not Whitesnake, to Dokken, because George Lynch was such a touted guitarist, and I got into his stuff, and Racer X, which aren't really hair metal. Paul Gilbert was later in Mr. Big, and so on. So I really, being a guitarist and trying to progress as a musician is what got me into hair metal, because that is what really ignited that. Because it's like, I saw Arsis a couple of years back, it's a death metal band, and one of the lead guitarists had a Rat shirt on. I was like, that's the coolest thing in the world. So you wouldn't have seen that 30 years ago with a thrash band wearing that fucking guy wearing a Rat shirt, But now you do, because there's so many influences that we have kind of overlooked and kind of come back to, or were never into in the first place, and now we like it. So that's the whole story with that. And Whitesnake is one of those things. What happened with Whitesnake is I was told for years that John Sykes was this super shredder guitarist. I never really followed up on it. And I was getting more into shredders in early 2011 again. And I was like, I'm going to check out that Whitesnake album, that 1987. I always liked David Coverdale, so him doing hair metal can't be that bad, can it? I always like, I don't like his Coverdale page, but I really liked his Deep Purple work. So I checked it out, and I fucking loved it. And John Sykes became one of my favorite guitar players. That's it. What do I think of the version now of Crying in the Rain? I really thought that Dives would bring it to the vocal talents of the song. That's why I decided to do another version and put it under the Pathless Land banner, because I thought, since I started working with him as a session vocalist, I thought he sounded a lot like David Coverdale meets a few other people, or at least like had a little flash of that in there. And that's why I kind of, I heard that heartiness to him, so I wanted to do that with him. And I also wanted to redo some of the guitars that I did earlier this year with that song, make it a little bit better. So it's just a YouTube exclusive thing. It's, you know, nothing to be taken seriously. It's a bonus track, but you know, I continue to want to do more covers in the future and look forward to doing them. It's check it out on my channel. There's a Mark Gormley cover of viral YouTube fame. I did a metal version of his famous, or you know, if you're of a certain persuasion, infamous song, Without You, and I really enjoyed that. People seem to like that quite a bit as well. So I'm going to continue to do covers. I thought Crying in the Rain would be unexpected in a certain way, but also expected. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm going to do a Halloween cover or something. But it's not like doing an ABBA cover either. It's sort of in the middle, you know. So hope you enjoy it, and please subscribe and continue to support Pathless Land, as you'll be seeing many, 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 many songs in the future.